Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. I am so excited for this episode today because I feel like it is years overdue, like literally years overdue. I am here with Kate and Jen, who lead some of our survivingbreastcancer.org programs each month, and they are just a wealth of information, inspiration, and support. We have so much to dive into today, not only about their work with survivingbreastcancer.org, but Jen shares with us also her personal experience being diagnosed with breast cancer and teaching DIEP Flap Yoga. We also talk about restorative yoga, a variety of other practices. Plus, wait until the end because I definitely have so many questions for these two. Like, what is your favorite yoga pose? What is your most dreaded yoga pose? What tips and tricks do you have and recommend for our listeners who may have never experienced your class before? So everything you need to know right here, right now. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate. I'm based out of the lovely Las Vegas area here in the desert. I teach the restorative yoga classes on Mondays, and I've been doing it now for a couple of years, and I've absolutely fallen in love with it. It's I look forward to it every month. It's one of my favorite classes to teach.
Oh, I'm so glad. I actually made my mom take your class. Like, she's not a cancer survivor, but she's my mom. So she falls into that caregiver side. And I remember because she was so stressed out one day. I think it was around Christmas. And I was like, Mom, Kate's class is happening right now. You're doing this. And so I just remember you guys were lying on the floor and breathing. And it was just hearing your voice and then seeing my mom, I was like, oh, this is good. This is healthy. So I really appreciate that.
Yes. Anytime the moms can join or anytime the furry friends come in, I love it. My own mom is a survivor of breast cancer, and she also joins us as many weeks as she can. So love having the family members join.
And Jen, where are you calling in from?
So, hi, I'm Jen. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, so also here on the West Coast. And I started teaching, I guess, almost a few years ago, a couple of years, the DIEP Flap Yoga class for people who have been through DIEP Flap surgery.
And is that specifically because you also have gone through DIEP Flap surgery?
That's right. So I was diagnosed in my early 40s, and then 2021, I went through treatment, and I had the DIEP Flap surgery, and I've been a yoga teacher since the early 2000s. So this is what I've been doing most of my adult life. And I found that there just really wasn't a lot out there for us. And I just started doing stuff on my own. And then I started my own DIEP Flap on Facebook, got a great response. And then I was contacted by SBC to see if I wanted to offer a monthly class. And I'm like, that's amazing. So I brought some of my ladies in, and I've met so many amazing people.
Amazing. Thank you. And I was about to ask you too, were you practicing and doing yoga before your diagnosis? And so you said you did.
Yes.
I also was a huge yoga practitioner before my diagnosis. And we can definitely dive into some of this too, because I feel like there's still trauma I'm healing from post early stage diagnosis, and getting into movement, upper body strength again, understanding when I used to do super vigorous styles of yoga, accepting that my body needs more of the restorative yoga at this time of my life, and just, the different techniques of how we can incorporate this amazing movement and love for our bodies and use it as a healing technique through this awful journey of cancer. So I'm really excited to dive into this and just explore questions that arise. So, okay. I guess my first question, and maybe I'm putting you guys totally on the spot. So for my listeners, in case you don't know this, I do not prep my guest in advance with any questions because we keep our podcast incredibly conversational. And even though Kate and Jen have been with SBC for a number of years, they actually don't know each other very well either because they teach separate classes. But I'm thrilled that we have our West Coast representation because we are looking to grow more programs also in that time zone. So when I'm thinking about yoga, I could be so overwhelmed with all of the different styles and types. So right away, we're talking about restorative yoga. And then Jen, you were mentioning DIEP Flap Yoga. And that's, when I think about DIEP Flap, I'm like, okay, what if I don't have a DIEP Flap surgery? Can I still participate? Or what is restorative yoga? What does that mean? Am I broken? Am I like meditating on a mat? Like, I'm not sure. So let's just start with like general definitions of how you guys approach your class. So Kate, let's start with you.
For me, I'm a body worker in training, so I really love to bring self body work techniques and breathing techniques into my restorative classes. Because you're right, there's 1,000 different styles of yoga. There's, depending on what you want to get out of it, there's so many types of different practices. And what I've been finding, at least in my own practice, is that sometimes the restorative, more quiet yoga is almost the hardest to do because we can't turn our brains off and we can't really allow the different layers of tissue to get some rejuvenation or to get more relaxation or just to feel better in general, as opposed to the harder style of yoga where you're doing 1,000 handstands or whatever it is. But the restorative side is so important, in my opinion, because with or without a diagnosis, we're going all through life and we're always coming up to these struggles, whether it is medical or whether it's a relationship or whatever. And a lot of times people feel kind of like lost in that chaos and they tend to like disconnect from the body, the physical body. So that's why I love to bring the body work and breathing techniques, because it zeroes people in. It like they're feeling into like what the different tissues are reacting to, like what is actually happening in the here and now. And then they get to fall asleep afterwards, which everybody needs more sleep. But yeah, that's it. I teach all different styles of yoga, but I have found that this particular type is just so incredibly beneficial. And I see the students online before and after, and if you could just see like a before and after picture, they look like two different people. And that's I really want people to feel that they have the magic still within themselves to feel better, whether that's just by a simple like breath or maybe a little bit of like myofascial release or maybe just a nice big stretch or whatever their body's needing in the moment.
I always feel so good when I'm on my mat, and I forget, like, why don't I do this all the time? But like when I do make it to a class and I'm lying there and I'm letting I love just being guided, right? Like I have this amazing teacher that I always try and go to her classes, and she's like, feeling the floor support you, like sink into that and feel the earth beneath you. And you're like you can literally sink in. And I feel like the stress, like even if I didn't have a stressful day, but like buried stress, like release. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that. And so Jen, all right, tell me how you approach your classes.
So I taught all kinds of yoga. I became a cancer exercise specialist during treatment, actually, when I couldn't move around a lot, and I'm a personal trainer. So I also have a pretty strong fitness background. And the way I looked at it was after the surgery. So DIEP flap stands for deep inferior epigastric artery perforator. Okay, so DIEP. And basically, we have a scar from hip to hip. And so anything stretching the belly, the chest is really tight. And I just find like you don't know what you can do because everything feels strange. And sometimes one side hurts more than the other. And I still have it, even several years out, I still have that stretchy feeling. And so I still can't do like full cobra pose. And I used to do amazing back bends before I was diagnosed, and that's okay. And so some feedback I've received is that, it's great to know what we can do. We can get the benefits of the back bend. We just go to a lower cobra or a sphinx pose. We can do bridge. Not everyone can do wheel right away, but eventually, yeah, you will be able to do wheel again. And so also with, kind of a hatha approach, stretching the hip flexors, starting to really open the chest, and looking at strengthening the back as well as the full core, which a lot of people think core is just your abs, but it's really this whole, center section of the body, inner outer thighs, lower back. During treatment, the low back gets tight and tired. And then also with the surgery, you're hunched over, and about maybe 5 weeks, you might be just kind of, protecting that area as it starts to stretch. And that's a really long time. So there's a lot of tightness and discomfort that results from that. And it lasts for months and months. So just getting that blood flow to the healing areas. And I get women, who are pretty recently out of surgery and women who are years out from surgery. And I feel like everyone can benefit.
And I'd say for both of your classes too, like, for anywhere on that experience of a breast cancer diagnosis, even if you haven't had surgery yet, or maybe you don't need surgery, I think both of these techniques are very helpful. I'm thinking to my friends who are going through chemotherapy right now and are dealing with fatigue or joint pain as a side effect from some of the drugs that they're on. And, I feel like the dialogue, the narrative has changed from like 20 years ago where it was like, oh, you have cancer, stay in bed, conserve your energy, rest. And now doctors are like, take a walk, move, exercise, because that is actually going to reduce the fatigue, even though it sounds counterintuitive. But like, I think as you were referencing to, like getting that blood flowing and, that mind body connection through the breath work, I think is really important. When I was going through chemotherapy, I had no problems maintaining yoga practice. I had what's called neoadjuvant chemotherapy, so chemotherapy before surgery. And like I was proud of my bald head. I would like show up to the yoga studio. Like I was that like strong yoga cancer patient, like in the room. This was pre-COVID when we were still like, in person doing all of these things. And, um, and they also give you a lot of steroids to help manage the side effects of like nausea. And so you can also kind of function, even though there will be side effects from the chemo. They pump you up with a lot of steroids. So I always joke with my friends, like, I'm the Energizer Bunny, like days 1 and 2 right after treatment, because I could do the dishes, I could walk around, I could move, like I could do yoga, I feel fantastic. And then, days 4, 5, 6, you get to your cycle of just crashing and feeling completely exhausted. But it wasn't until after my surgery, and Jen, I want to like dive into this a little bit more too, because you were mentioning like with your surgery, not just for the abdomen, but for anyone who's getting um, a lumpectomy, a mastectomy, going flat, having reconstruction, like all of these options, you're really causing trauma to the body. And I, to this day, am still building up my strength to do like chaturanga. And so for the first time, like after going through all of this treatment, yoga became so triggering to me because I could remember what I was capable of doing. And so you were referencing like you were great at back bends. Like I actually had to step away from yoga because it was like it literally was making me cry because I couldn't do the things I used to do, such as cobra or such as holding plank. Like I lost so much upper body strength. And it's really like I'm 8 years out from my initial diagnosis and I'm now just rediscovering my love for the practice again and getting stronger and accepting that I'm using props and, finding other ways to like love my body and my flexibility. But I had to really take that step back. I don't know if that resonates with what you've experienced or what you see in the class.
I think everyone's so different. In my personal journey, I started weight training more because I saw what muscles were weaker. The back, I started training my back more. I started looking at the shoulder girdle. And so my chaturanga is not what it was. My arm balances are not what they were. And I'm going to be working on it for a long time. But I feel like my handstand's stronger now. Because I've hit my PR with deadlifts, I've hit my PR with overhead press. And so just learning and focusing on what you can do. And no matter what we've been through, we can get stronger. That is a fact. That is a fact. And so just learning to move your bodies in ways that make you feel good and where you can see progress. And it's just about finding that. And it feels really good when you find it.
It's okay. I don't want to be conflating two different styles of yoga. So you are the expert here. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I experienced, I think it was like yin yoga, where it was, and I don't know if that follows under like restorative yoga or not, but it was all like on the floor. There was no standing posture. And we were holding positions much longer. And I don't know if I was just like too fidgety. It was like the hardest type of yoga I have ever done. And so when you were talking about, restorative yoga, and how it actually can be a little bit more challenging than some of this more vigorous, flow and vinyasa style or Ashtanga yoga practices. You know, I'm there with you where I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can stay still for like 90 seconds or not have my like brain run of like, okay, what am I cooking for dinner? Like, do I have to go grocery shopping? Like, how do we stay present?
Yeah, totally. I always preface this at the beginning of my classes that we're going to do some movement to get the wiggles out because we're always like, so go, go, go. Like we're going to do like a little bit, like nothing major, like maybe hold a side bend or something, or do a twist or just something to like get the physical body and physical tissues wrung out. Because if those are easier to calm down, then the mind will have an easier time to calm down itself. And then going back to the body work, that's another reason why I like to incorporate that, because then rather than thinking about what you're going to make for dinner, you're now focusing on, okay, why is my middle finger or my pointer finger like, how can I stretch out these joints, or how can I, zero in on making this specific touch on my finger feel so incredibly good. Because only we know how to make our bodies and ourselves feel good. We're our own experts at that. And then just giving people the permission and the time to take a beat and see what is that makes you feel good in that moment, and really tie everything into the present time that you're in, because it is so easy for our monkey brains to switch on and think about either future lists or what we were able to do in the past, and it's really hard to keep the mind from wandering between those two spaces. But I always encourage my students that if that does happen, it's okay. It's just how we're That's just how we're wired to do. But if you catch yourself and give yourself permission to be, okay, I'm going to zero back into this one very specific thing, then that does help. That does tend to help bring the focus away from present, or from future or past into the present. Doesn't always work though. Sometimes the brain is just has a mind of its own, and it'll just keep going, 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 and that's okay too. But as long as we're getting a little bit of movement in, a little bit of pleasure into our practice, or a little bit of joy into our day, because everything's so interconnected, that's going to affect everything down the line. So even if I'm rubbing my finger and it feels so good, that's going to affect something further down the line. So, yeah, just giving people the opportunity to help themselves little bits at a time.
Well, and I think those are such good techniques. I'm thinking that, I'm in Boston and we're like, I'm sure we fit the stereotype as I'm talking to two West Coasters, but I'm like, my wardrobe is like black, navy blue, and gray. Like navy blue is the color splash, right? And then, you're just like darting from like work to business to all of these things. You're on your phone. You're not saying hi to anyone on the sidewalks. Like you're just go, go, go. And as you're talking, I'm thinking like, even in the grocery store, when I'm standing in line to check out, I'm on my phone. Like I'm constantly multitasking and I'm constantly doing something where I can't just like stand in line and just be. But like, what if I had these techniques of like, massaging my fingers or my joints, or being present, or I don't know, practicing breath work while standing in line.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's still multitasking, but in a much more calmer scenario.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. Some of the other things I love when yoga teachers tell me, like, you'll be lying there and they're like, and relax your tongue. And you don't realize how stressed your like tongue is on the top of your mouth. Or, what is it like to relax your ears? And I'm like, I don't know. I never think about my ears. Like, there's just so many things that help us stay present that I think, we move too much. We think too much. We're too busy.
Need more time for yoga.
I do. And so I think I'm going to make definitely more time for that. So when we're thinking about the people that you're working with in the survivingbreastcancer.org community, I would love to hear like how you got attracted, outside of me like asking, hey, do you want to teach a class for us? But like what attracted you to working with cancer patients?
Well, as I mentioned before, my mom is a survivor. So that was one of the reasons why I was really drawn to the organization when I was first asked to teach for y'all. But also because the style of yoga that I was trained in, forest yoga, or rather forest inspired yoga, it's really focused on the therapeutic side of the yoga practice. And it's really meant to help alleviate pain, whether that's from past injuries, posture, or even emotional pain. And of all the different practices I've experienced, this one's the most powerful as far as, shedding your former skins and elevating yourself to a higher level. It also really encourages the practitioner to practice patience because in the style of yoga, we're holding poses for maybe 5 to 8 breaths, or maybe for 5 minutes. Might be in horse pose for 8 minutes or something. But it's really meant to get all of the connective tissues working, get everything working in a harmonious way, so that you're not over relying on, like maybe your shoulder to hold you up, or maybe rely on one side more than the other. So you get more balance, not just in the physicality of your body, but also spiritually and mentally as well. And when I first started getting trained in this style of yoga, I was working with a lot of older students. So people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of people who have surgeries or coming back from who are postnatal, prenatal. So I wasn't working with the, I guess, ideal yoga body type. I was working with people who really had a lot of obstacles in their day to day life, and I really um, I mean, as somebody who has obstacles all the time in their life, and yoga was a way to help kind of alleviate all that, I really wanted to share that with people, so that, maybe you can't, bring your arm up to this level now, but, we'll keep working on it so that eventually you can get it your full mobility and have a quality of life that is more conducive to you. So, just working with people who need yoga the most is what really drew me to it.
Jen, what about you?
Well, it was mostly like a lot of the things I end up doing is to learn more about myself. And when I had chemo first, and when I was in AC chemo, there were times when I couldn't get out of bed, or I could barely walk down the hall. So my yoga practice was, pranayama, was breathing, and just trying to lie there and take deep breaths, trying to regulate my heart rate. And so that is yoga. And then some days I could get out of bed and get onto the ground and do some gentle spinal twists and some forward folds and things that just, very small movements, but that is yoga. And so I don't know what I would do without my yoga practice. And I just kept going, and I had a lumpectomy, and then I had the DMX, the double mastectomy, and then I had the DIEP Flap all in one surgery, and then I had a revision. So a lot of surgeries that year, and yoga saved me. And I just, with all the groups and the blogs and the chat rooms, and everyone had the same question. Well, what do I do? How do I move? How long until I can do a plank? How long until I can move my arms in a circle? And they tell me not to do this and not to do that. And what can I do? And so that was really the inspiration for me to say, hey, I have all this training, I have all this experience, and this is like, maybe this is my calling, like to serve and to, work with this population and really, I know what you're going through. I know exactly how it feels. And it's like when you teach prenatal yoga after you've had a baby, because I did both. And after I had a baby, I was like, I get it now. It's really, when you've been through it, I think it just makes a big difference. And I'm still, everyone's so different. And sometimes, I don't know, it's just, you get distracted, or you just get like, okay, I don't want to do yoga anymore. I want to do something else. And I started dancing, and that's okay. Like, movement is movement, but I always come back to my yoga. I always come back to my meditation. Restorative yoga saved me as well. I said, I need to take care of myself. So when I was in chemo, I actually hired a restorative yoga teacher to come to my house and 2 or 3 poses, but I said, I need this right now. I'm not going to teach it. I'm going to be the student, and this is my time to receive, because I've been giving so much my whole life, as we yoga teachers do. And so I think just also being able to say, I'm going to step back, and this is my time to receive and honor my own healing. That's huge, especially for people pleasers and women and multitaskers. That was huge for me. So I'm really glad, I had that.
Jen, I love what you were saying. What came up for me as you were talking is, like, you show people from, like, you change the conversation for people from I can't to I can. And I just think that's beautiful.
So I'm sensing, can we do like a joint class, maybe like a workshop or something, where we do like restorative and DEIP Flap? Like, oh my God. Okay.
Yes,
Brainstorming.
please.
My listeners will hold us accountable. I'm learning from both of you also for like accepting what we can do, knowing it's like okay to get the wiggles out, to be fidgety. I love that it's called yoga practice, not yoga perfect. Like we're here showing up and doing what we can every day. And Kate, too, even your example of like, how can you move your arm, especially after surgery? I know my doctor had us do like these like crawling up the wall exercises of like how high can you go until you can like reach really like get to your like 90 or 180 degree um, mobility back. And change of topic a little bit because the other questions that I get a lot are, oh, I had surgery. I'm a breast cancer survivor or thriver, and I'm also managing with lymphedema because I had my lymph nodes removed. And so when the lymph nodes are removed, you can potentially develop, kind of like this blockage of the lymphatic fluid not being able to flow. And there can be swelling. It can be incredibly painful. Your limb can feel very heavy. And yoga actually is one of those practices that has been recommended because you're naturally moving your body in a way that will promote the lymphatic fluid to flow.
Anytime the lymphatic system gets inflamed, it's like it just takes over the whole psyche. And what's interesting is now that I'm learning more about like lymphatic drainage approaches and things like that, a lot of the positions that they put people in, I'm like, oh, that's yoga pose. Oh, that's like legs up the wall. That's perfect. So yeah, it's amazing how you can see like worlds kind of collide, and also it's interesting that yoga didn't start off with movement. Yoga started with pranayama. It started with breathing, and that's how it was for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years until somebody decided to put some poses to it. But the breath work is what I feel that's the key to unlock everything. Like if you can breathe in a way that can help activate different systems in your body, whether it's breathing and draining your lymphatic system or just getting more air into areas that might have scar tissue or some physical or energetic blockages to help move that stuff around so that you can have more mobility. Is just it's key for sure.
Definitely. I mean, people don't think about it a lot, but think about when you do a downward dog or there's so much moving around that you're getting that inversion, just everything's flowing. And personally, I had 19 lymph nodes out, and I just started moving my arm right away. They're like, just move when you feel like you can move. So I could only go here for a while. So I was doing I teach my little chicken wings, and just start there on day 3, and then keep going and going, and just whatever you do, keep moving. That's it.
I have to ask, can you explain to me when my yoga teacher puts me in a pose and tells me to breathe into it, like whatever, like tension or like my hip flexors are tight, they're like, take some deep breaths and breathe into it. Like, what am I breathing into? Can you help me understand what this means?
I will say that specific type of cueing, it took me a long time to figure it out, because it's weird because we're so used to breathing just in our chest and using maybe like 75% of our lung capacity. So when you're able to intake more and more breath, you're able to feel it spread out into different areas. Like even when you take like a relieving breath, you might feel your chest relax or something like that. So the idea is eventually you should be able to breathe into somewhere further down your body, whether it's your leg or your knee or whatever. But if you can't quite feel it there, that's okay, as long as you're visualizing it. If you can visualize your breath moving through your body into that area, that'll help a ton. And it'll also start teaching your mind and your nerve endings in that area to talk to each other a little clearer, rather. So if you just keep visualizing it, and then eventually you might feel like a little like, oh, I felt a little like surge of energy or a little surge of something. And just keep working at that and chipping away at it. And then soon those little instances of energy or reaction or sensation, they'll start to link together to be created into a bigger sensation. So you are able to breathe all the way down into your baby toe if you need to. But yeah, when you're first starting, when I first heard it too, was like, what do you mean I need to breathe into my low back? How do I even do it? My lungs are up here, my back's down there. Like at first it doesn't make sense. But using the power of your imagination, and then eventually your body will respond to that breath.
Jen, do you have anything to add?
It's one of those cues, right? Because if you know what it is, it's easy just to cue it and make that assumption that people get it. But like, for example, if we're breathing into the lower back, I would cue to inhale and actually feel the rising of the low back, like if we're on our bellies. And then breathing into the low back, feel it fall. And then now the mid back, breathing in and exhale, the upper back, so people can actually feel that. And then one thing I do, actually, I do this a lot with kids and adults, is imagine your favorite color. And so as you inhale, it can be like a blue, purple, green. That color is going deep into your lungs and then down into your arms and your legs. And it just gives that visual. I don't know, it's a nice feeling.
I'm so excited. Thank you for explaining that. Well, you can take this one of two ways. I was going to originally ask favorite pose, most dreaded pose, or do you have like a love-hate relationship with a pose? And I will go first while you guys have a second to think. So I'm going to go with the the love-hate relationship pose. And my love-hate relationship pose is pigeon. So I love it because I know it's so good for me, but we always hold it what seems to be like the longest. And that's where they cue, like breathe into that sensation in your hips. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm here. So that is my love-hate relationship pose, is pigeon.
Anna Forrest, the lady who invented or created the style of yoga that I was taught in, she said the yoga poses you hate the most are the ones you need to do the most. I would say mine is any chest opener. I have very tight shoulders and chest. It's like very hard for me to put my arm behind my back. So anything there, my least favorite, but I know I need to do it.
Absolutely. And that's actually so true too, because that's why I have to go to like a yoga class. Because if I just do yoga by myself, I'm doing all of my favorite poses and avoiding all the ones that I probably need the most. So that is very sage advice.
Anytime I'm in a class, anywhere, conference, other person's class, anything, revolve triangle, I know I just know that someone's going to come over here because it's just one of those poses since the beginning of time. I don't like it. It takes me a while to get into it and I feel like I'm never ready. So it takes a long time for me to really get into that one. Mm-hmm.
So that's like a dislike. That's not like a love hate. That's like
that is a dislike. But if I'm into it and I'm prepared and it feels really good after, but it's just one of those. My anatomy is just like, oh, what are you doing?
Okay, my last question, the true last one now. So for our listeners and people who are part of the survivingbreastcancer.org community, if they've never taken a yoga class in their life, but they're obviously part of the SBC community, they found our podcast, they're listening to us, what would you say to them to encourage them to test out and try your class? And I'll let you answer in the framework of yoga, but I hear this all the time for our expressive writing classes. Like, oh, I'm not a writer. I can't write. I'm like, it's not about writing, you guys. Like, we're in this community together. And it's really just like getting, in this case, like thoughts and ideas on paper. And you're not going to be like a poet or laureate. You know, it's not about writing. Or same with our art therapy classes. Oh, I'm not good at like drawing or painting, or I'm not creative. It's like, it's not about the art. And so once people come in, they're like hooked. And I love that. But it's like getting them to like take that first initial step, because we know how great it is that we want to like, you know, proclaim, oh, please come to Kate and Jen's classes. Like, this is so amazing that we have this. But if maybe you're shy, you've never done yoga before, you don't know what to do, you're going through chemo and surgery and you have all of these like, oh, things are going on. Why add one more thing? What tip would you give someone who's just like considering dabbling into this?
It's intimidating, right? Especially if you've never done yoga and you see yoga, like, what am I going to do? I think for me, the yoga is great. The movement is great. All the things, right? All the things we've been talking about. But for me, I really find that people benefit from the community and knowing that they're not alone. And especially with this DIEP Flap surgery, there are so many of us. I didn't know anyone who'd had it before, but now I know thousands of women, you know, and it just feels good for me also to know that I'm not alone.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think of yoga and they think of the extreme, like handstands on the side of a mountain type of deal. But in reality, it's just as long as you can take a breath and you got a blanket or a pillow nearby, you're golden. You don't even need to have experienced yoga before, even though a lot of people, when they get into the class, they're like, oh, I've done this before. Like, it's really not that scary. But just, realizing that whether it's the movement, the breath work, the body work, or just getting to see, fellow um, SBC community members, that, just getting out of your comfort zone, even for a little bit, can open up so many different windows that you never even knew. I have students all the time that, even if they're coming in late and they only were able to get 5-10 minutes of yoga in, they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe, it's like a whole new world out there. Even just a couple of minutes of this can totally change your outlook on everything. So it doesn't have to take an hour, even if you just pop in for 1 minute and do a couple breaths with us. Just a little bit goes a long way.
Absolutely. Well, I love this. People can check out these yoga classes at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Like we were talking, they are monthly, and you can pair this with we have a 10-minute meditation on Mondays as well. We also record some of these classes, and you can check them out on our YouTube channel as well as on our SBC app. For those of you who don't know, actually, we do have an app in the App Store. You can check out survivingbreastcancer.org, download our app, and get all of our blogs, podcasts, and on-demand videos there. So thank you, Kate and Jen, for being here today. We are so excited to dive deep into your stories. I am so honored that you have been part of the survivingbreastcancer.org community for several years. And I think this will be more of more collaborations. I'm already thinking what we can do together. And clearly a sign that I need to get to the West Coast to come visit you guys. So thank you for being on today's show and spending some time with us. And thank you everyone for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400 plus programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.